So let's proceed now to piecewise function. So piecewise function. Sorry? Piecewise. I'm gonna type that. So piecewise. So piece. A piece. Okay. So what do you mean by piecewise function? When we say piecewise function, it composed of two or more functions. Two or more functions. So for example, f of x. Okay, f of x. So we have 3x minus 1 to negative 3x. So this is an example of piecewise function. Why is it? When we say piecewise function, it contains of two or more equations or functions. Okay? So this is your first function, second function, third functions. So that's a piecewise function. Okay? How do we evaluate piecewise function? So for example, so given the piecewise function, okay, x is less than equal to negative 3, x is greater than negative 3, less than 1, x is greater than equal to 1. So how do we evaluate piecewise function? So for example, f of 0, f of 1, f of negative 5, f of 10. Okay, here we go. Again, we say piecewise function. It contains of two or more functions. Okay. So the first function is 3x minus 1, and there's a condition: x must be less than or equal to negative 3. Next, function number 2, f of x equals to 2. The condition is x must be greater than negative 3 but less than 1. And then the third function, negative 3x, the condition is x must be greater than equal to 1. Why do we need those conditions? Okay, we need those conditions in evaluating piecewise function. How? So for example, f of 0. So meaning 0 here, that is your x. Okay, 0 here, that is your x. Remember that f of x. Right? So meaning f of x is the same as f of 0. Your x here is 0. Now, we need to examine the conditions. What particular condition that this one applies? Is it in the first condition, second condition, or third condition? F of 0, meaning your x is 0. Is it in the first condition, second condition, or third condition? Nasaan si 0? Okay, in the second condition. Okay? F of 0, 0 applies in the second condition. Why is it? Because according to the second condition, x must be greater than negative 3 but less than 0. So within the range and then si 0 sa second condition. Okay? So what is the function of your second condition? What is the function? What's the given function for your second condition? Ano yung given function sa second condition? Okay, 2. So the answer is 2. That's it. That's how we evaluate function. Okay, next. F of 1. What about f of 1? So going back. F of 1. Your x here is 1. So where in this given condition? Okay, third condition. Why is it in the third condition? Because it says that okay, it must be greater than or equal to 1. So what is the given function in your third condition? Okay, negative 3x. So negative 3x. Okay, so negative 3x. It means that negative 3x. So we can now substitute 1 to x because there's a given x variable. So that will become negative 3 times 1. So you do have negative 3. So the answer is negative 3. Okay, negative 3. In the first example kasi, it's only 2. There's no x. So we cannot substitute 0 to x. Kaya 2 lang yung sagot. Okay? Next, letter C, negative 5. Where is it? Yung negative 5. Negative 5. What particular? Okay, first condition. Why is it? Why is it in the first condition? Okay, very good. Because according to the first condition, x must be less than or equal to negative 3. X must be less than or equal to negative 3. So meaning, that will become 3x minus 1. So substitute x to your negative 5. So that will become 3 multiplied by negative 5 minus 1. Okay? So 3 multiplied by negative 5. Negative 15 minus 1. Negative 16. Okay, that's it. That's how we evaluate piecewise function. Okay? What about f of 10? F of 10. Okay, third condition. Obviously, because according to the third condition, x is greater than equal to 1. So what is the function of the third condition? That is negative 3x. So meaning negative 3x, that will be negative 3 times 10. So you do have negative 30. Okay? So that's how we evaluate piecewise function. Another example. Before we proceed to domain and range. So we have f of x equals negative x cubed plus 6x squared minus 9x plus 4. The condition is x must be less than 2. Next, x minus 4. The condition is x is greater than equal to 2. So evaluate f of negative 1 and f of 2. Okay? So how do we evaluate? Letter A. Evaluate f of negative 1. How do we evaluate that? So we need to examine your conditions. So you have two conditions. So the first condition, x is less than 2. The second condition, x is greater than equal to 2. The given is f of negative 1. So meaning your x is negative 1. What particular condition? Okay, first condition. Because according to the first condition, x must be less than 2. And negative 1 is less than 2. So what is the function of the first condition? What is the function? What's the given function? What's the given function? Plus, okay. And then after that, you substitute. So we have negative times negative 1 raised to 3 plus 6 multiplied by negative 1 squared minus 9 multiplied by negative 1 plus 4. So what will be your answer? Okay, 20. Next, letter B, f of 2. What about f of 2? Okay, second condition. So that will be x minus 4. Okay, so we have 2 minus 4. So what will be the answer? Negative 2. Okay, is it clear, people? Is it clear? Okay, let's proceed now to domain. Okay, how do we find the domain of the given function? So how do we determine the domain of a piecewise function? Okay, in determining the domain of a piecewise function, again, you need to examine the conditions. Okay, puro conditions tayo yan. Okay, you can examine the conditions, okay, mentally, or you can have it using illustrations. Okay, so using illustrations. So to illustrate so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. Okay. So the first condition says that x is less than or equal to negative 1. Okay, that's the first condition. Second condition, x is greater than negative 1. So we're talking about one number, which is negative 1. Okay? So this is your horizontal line, your x-axis. So we have negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay? This is your x-axis, since we're talking about domain. Okay? So this is your x-axis in a number line. Now, going back to the first condition, it says that x is less than or equal to negative 1. X is less than or equal to negative 1. So meaning negative 1 is included, going to the left. Okay? Those are the values of the first condition. What about the second condition? It says what? In the second condition, it says that x must be greater than negative 1. So going to the right. Going to the right. So what is your domain based on the graph? Based on the illustration, what is your domain? Is it this? Okay, so your domain will be negative infinity to positive infinity. Why is it? Why is it? Try to examine your conditions. Try to examine your conditions. Why is it negative infinity to positive infinity? Examine the conditions. Because according to the conditions, what? Negative 1 is included. And then the next number, greater than 1, is also included. Okay? So meaning, all set of real numbers are included. So negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay? Another example. Another example. So that you can illustrate. I'll give you another example. Let's say the given is this one. G of x is equal to 1. And then the condition is x is less than negative 1. Next, if the function is x squared, the condition is x is greater than negative 1, but less than or equal to 2. And then the third function is 4. X is greater than 3. Okay? Greater than 3. So how do we examine this? So we need to illustrate it using the x values. Illustrate that. So we're talking about 3 numbers here in the conditions. So what are those numbers? We're talking about 3 numbers. What are those? Ano yung 3 numbers sa conditions? Okay, so we have negative 1. So we have 2. And then 3. Okay? So in determining the domain, we need to examine the condition. Okay? So the first condition says what? Okay, x is less than negative 1. So meaning, negative 1 is not included. Okay? Negative 1 is not. Okay. And then, okay. So here. So shaded circle, meaning 2 is included. Next, what's the third condition? What's the third condition? Okay, x is greater than 3. Do we need to include 3? Is it 3? Okay. Going to the right. Okay. So in here, can you determine the domain? What are the possible values of x based on the illustration? So this is your negative infinity, and then this is your positive infinity. So what are the values of x based on the illustration that we have? So yeah, what's the value of x based on the illustration? Negative infinity to positive infinity. So your domain will be what? Let's start with this on the left. So we have negative infinity going where? Negative infinity going to 2, is it correct? Okay. Okay. So it should be negative infinity going where? Negative 1 and then, is it bracket? Okay, parenthesis. Next. What's the next value? Okay, union. Parenthesis, negative 1 because negative 1 is not included. And then, okay, 2 bracket. Why is it bracket? Okay, next. What's next? Union. Okay. Okay. 2 and 22. Okay, that's the domain of the given function. Okay? Why? Why is it? How do you come up with that? What have you noticed? What about 2 to 3? Do we need to include that? Okay, no. Why is it no? Because it's not in the condition. It's not in the condition. In the first example that we had a while ago, all are possibles. Okay? All the given numbers are possible. That's why your answer is negative infinity to positive infinity. In this particular, we cannot conclude that the domain is negative to positive infinity. Why is it? Because negative 1 is not included. 2 to 3 is not included. So we cannot use negative infinity to positive infinity. So you need to illustrate what are those possible values now na pwede. So based on our illustration, the possible values are negative infinity to negative 1. Okay? Wherein negative 1 is not included. That's why we put bracket, parenthesis. And then the other one is negative 1 to 2 bracket because 2 is included. That's according to the condition. Less than or equal to 2. Okay? And then 3 to positive infinity. So same thing that 3, it's not included based on the condition. So again, in determining the domain of a piecewise function, you need to inspect or examine the given condition. Okay? Is it clear, people? Okay, let's proceed now to how do we graph a piecewise function. Okay? How do we graph? And how do we determine the domain? Sorry? The range, we can determine that using the graph. Okay? So we need to graph first before we determine the range. Okay? For the domain of the piecewise function, you can easily determine it using the condition. But for the range, you need to graph first. So how do we graph a piecewise function? Let's say example number 1. So f of x is equal to negative 2 if x is less than 0, x plus 1 if x is greater than equal to 0. Okay? So how do we graph that? Let's start with the first function. So the first function is f of x equals negative 2. Okay? F of x equals negative 2. What is the condition? Ano yung condition na f of x equals negative 2? What's the condition? The condition is x less than 0. Okay? If x is 0, what is your y? Kapag 0 daw si x, what is your y? If x is 0, what's your y? Okay, negative 2. Okay? Because it's a horizontal. It's a constant function. Constant. This one is constant function. What is the graph of a constant function? What is the graph of a constant function? Di ba horizontal line? Okay, next. F of x equals to x plus 1. Okay? F of x equals to x plus 1. Okay? So x less than equal to 0. So you need to assign values of x from these conditions. Okay, these conditions. X greater than equal to 0. So if x is 0, what is y? Okay, 1. If x is 2, what is y? Okay, 3. Next. If x is 3, what is y? Okay, 4. Okay? So how do we plot that? How do we plot it? Okay. First, so how do we plot it? Okay, let's start with the first one. X equals to 0, y equals negative 2. So negative 2. 1, 2. So nandito yun, negative 2. But what's the condition? X must be less than to 0. Ito yung 0 mo. Ito yung 0 ng x. Okay? Ito yung 0 ng x. So negative 2, x must be what? 0 is not included. Ano ba yung condition? Ito yung negative 2. So x must be less than 0. So kung ito yung 0, nasa gitna, okay? So the arrow is going where? To the right or to the left? Okay, to the left. So from here, yan. So that is your f of x equals negative 2. Okay? 0 going to the left. Because according to the condition, x must be less than 0. So 0 going to the left direction. Okay? So yun lang yung value ng x. That's according to the condition. Now next, x plus 1. So you need to plot it. So we have 0, 1. 0, 1. Okay? It should be shaded circle since there's an equality. Okay? 0, 1. Next, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay? 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So you need to connect it going there. We cannot extend it. Hindi pwedeng extend pababa. Why is it? We cannot extend it down. Why? Because, ano ba sabi ng condition? Okay. So the end point of the graph is up to this one lang. Because this is your 0 eh. Okay? This line is 0. Diba ito yung 0 ng x? 0, 1, 2, 3. The other one's negative. Negative 2, negative 3. So this is your 0. Okay? That is 0. Miss, ano daw yun? What's the question? Miss Cervantes wanted me to inform you that her Wi-Fi is already... Okay. Noted, my dear. Okay. So you cannot extend the graph because according to the condition, x must be greater than equal to 0. Okay? The possible values of x lang is must be greater than equal to 0. Okay? So from here, what is your domain? From here, or based on the condition, what is your domain? Based on the condition, ano yung domain? Okay, all real numbers. That's correct. All real numbers. So meaning your domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. Now, what about the range? Okay? So range na. What is your lowest value of y? What's the lowest value of y? Okay, negative 2. Negative 2. Okay? So this is your lowest value of y. Then what's the next value of y? After ng negative 2, what's the next value of y? Okay, 1. So your range will be negative 2 union. Is it parenthesis or bracket? Okay, bracket. Bracket 1. Going where? Going where? Okay, going to positive infinity. So that's the range. So when we say range, you're referring to the y value. Okay, you need to write first the lowest value of y. Okay, so that would be negative 2. Okay. We cannot include negative 2 to 1. Why is it? We cannot include negative 2 to 1. Bakit? Why is it? Negative 2 to 1 is not included in the range. Why is it negative 1 to 2? Negative 2 to this one is not included. This portion. Why is this portion is not included? Okay, because there's a gap between the negative 2 and 1. Okay, there's no graph there. So we will not include that. Okay? Only negative 2. Okay? Because the graph is horizontal. So as is lang yun. Doon lang yung graph. Sa negative 2. So where's the next y value? Dito na. So 1. 1 going to positive infinity. So that's the range of the given function. Okay? Another example. Here, how do we graph that? X squared. If it's x squared, the graph looks like what? Kapag x squared. The graph looks like what? Kapag x squared. If it's x squared, the graph looks like a parabola. Yan. It's a parabola. That's the graph of x squared. Remember, it's a quadratic. It's quadratic. So the graph is parabola. Okay, parabola. So x squared, the graph is parabola. Something like that. Yan. Okay, that's the graph of x squared, parabola. The coefficient is positive, so it opens upward. Okay? So the center is 0, 0. Because the only given is x squared. So therefore, the center is in the origin. X, there's a condition. X less than 0. X less than 0. So what particular of the parabola is included? Anong part ng parabola is included? Based on the condition. If we graph x squared, it's like a parabola. Okay? Let's say if x is 1, what is your y? If x is 1, what's your y? Diba 1? So yun, here. If x is 2, what is your y? Okay, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But since it's a parabola, so merong symmetry. Okay? So merong symmetry. So if x is negative 1, so that will be 1. If x is negative 2, that will be positive 4. So then. So that's the graph of x squared. But what's the condition? Ano yung condition? Sabi ng condition, x is less than 0. So what part of the parabola is included? Is it on the left part or the right part? Based on the condition. Ano lang yung pwede? Okay. So yung left lang. So we need to omit the right one. So yan. So that's the graph. Based on the condition. Okay? X squared. The condition is x must be less than equal to 0. So itong graph lang to. Ang pwede. Next, what about this one? 3/4 x minus 2. So 3/4 x minus 2, it's linear function. Okay? It's linear function. So how do we plot linear function? How do we plot it? You do have slope. And then you do have y-intercept. So you can plot it. How do we plot? How do we sketch the graph? It's a linear. Using the slope and y-intercept. Paano yun? What is your y-intercept? Di ba ito? This is your y-intercept. So negative 2. So 1, 2. Yan. Ito yung y-intercept. And then what do we mean by slope? Rise over run. Rise over run. So from the y-intercept, we need to move how many units? Rise eh. So from slope from the y-intercept, we need to move how many units? How many units? From the slope, from the y-intercept, we need to move how many? Di ba ito rise over run? So rise na 1, 2, 3, and then run. Ilan? Ilang points yung run? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the graph of 3/4 x minus 2 is like this. Yun yung graph. But there's a condition. Ano yung condition? X must be greater than equal to 0. So ano yung part na pwedeng i-delete? Yung hindi kasali. What particular part? It's not included. Okay, itong left side. Okay. So yung left side. Now, what is your domain? Based on the condition, ano yung domain? Lahat ba possible? All real numbers ba based on the condition? Okay, so your domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. What about the range? What about the range? What about the range? Ano yung pinaka-minimum point ng y value? Okay, negative 2. Is it included or not? It's included. Negative 2. Going where? Okay, positive infinity. That's it. That's the range. So negative 2 to positive infinity. Okay, so we will continue our